Discovered my wife cheating. When we connected her phone to our new TV, she lost her job for leaking information and is now under investigation. So here's some background info. My wife and I have been hitched for 22 years, and we have a 19-year-old son. Like any marriage, we've had our share of squabbles, but nothing major that we couldn't move past. Honestly, I always thought we had a pretty solid marriage. We communicated well, had a strong attraction to each other, and our sex life was quite satisfying. One of the things that brought us closer was our mutual love for the great outdoors. We were always active hiking, camping, or just taking long walks. We made an effort to stay in good shape because we often talked about growing old together, still able to do all these things when we're gray and old. I work as a paramedic, and for the past 9 months or so, my work schedule got a bit crazy. I've had to work mostly night shifts and picked up a lot of extra hours. Meanwhile, my wife works as a litigation consultant and started working from home less than a year ago. It wasn't her idea. Her firm decided to switch to a liquid talent model where everyone works remotely. I remember she really wasn't thrilled about it. She complained a lot about not being able to meet clients and colleagues face-to-face, which she said made building relationships and trust difficult. Funny how she was so against it. Keep that in mind for later. Anyway, the night shifts started putting some distance between us since our schedules didn't line up anymore. She'd be at home working while I'd be sleeping, and when I was getting ready for work, I thought she was winding down for the night. When our schedules did sync up, everything seemed fine. We were still close, had fun together, and nothing seemed off. She'd tell me about her week, text me during the day while I was sleeping, saying she missed me or saw, something that reminded her of me. She even made meals for me to wake up to and packed lunches for my shifts. All signs pointed to our marriage being just fine. Recently, my brother came over to help me set up a Chromecast I won in a work contest. It was a rare day off, and I hadn't seen him in a while since he's also working shifts. We were messing around, taking turns connecting our phones to the TV, watching videos, and listening to music. My wife finished work and came out of her office asking what we were up to. I told her my brother was helping me connect my phone to the new Chromecast and asked if she wanted him to do the same for her phone. She was a bit hesitant at first, glancing at the TV and then back at me. I assured her it was super simple and would only take a couple of seconds. She finally agreed, but was fiddling with her phone right before she handed it to my brother. At that moment, I didn't think much of it. My brother started the process of connecting her phone to the TV. She asked how long it would take, and he jokingly said maybe 2 minutes. She said okay and went to the washroom, but not before turning back and confirming that he was just downloading an app. My brother and I were lounging on the couch, having drinks and not really paying much attention. He managed to connect her phone to the TV in no time and, as a joke, opened up her messages. There was a contact listed with just a heart emoji. Thinking it was a funny exchange between my wife and me, he started scrolling through the thread, making jokes about me being cheeky and a dirty dog. However, as I looked closer, I realized those messages weren't between my wife and me. My stomach dropped when I saw she was calling some guy named Craig. There were nudes exchanged, and let's just say the male anatomy in those pictures definitely wasn't mine. My brother noticed my reaction, slowed down, and started reading the messages more carefully. It hit him too. The texts were explicit, with references to certain body parts of Craig's being, well, involved with my wife. My brother quickly handed me the phone and made an excuse to leave. I didn't blame him. I started video recording what was on the screen. When I heard the toilet flush, I quickly exited the messages, dropped the phone on the couch, and ran out to the porch to make it seem like I had been out there the whole time. About 5 minutes later, she joined me outside and asked how long I'd been there. I told her my brother and I went out as soon as she left the room. She seemed relieved, acted like nothing happened, and sat next to me. I went back inside to pretend to grab another beer and noticed she had disconnected her phone from the TV, leaving the screen blank. This whole thing was eating me alive. I went for a quick run to clear my head and blow off some steam. I couldn't stop thinking about how I could get back on her phone to send those messages to myself and figure out just how deep this infidelity went. For some reason, I just had to know. So, later that night, I came up with this bogus excuse that I needed to re-download the app on our phones because something supposedly went wrong with the Chromecast. My wife isn't the most tech-savvy person, so she usually relies on me for anything tech-related around the house. Whether it's the internet, TV issues, or our phones, she always thinks I can fix it. She even makes me download coupon apps and other little things on her phone. So, I figured if I said I needed to re-download something, she'd probably believe me and hand over her phone. That night, I pretended to mess around with the TV before she went for a bath. Just as she got into the bath, I walked in and said, "Hey, I need to re-download this app on our phones because I accidentally unplugged something and it messed everything up." She looked a bit worried and sighed. "I don't really need to be connected to it." I reassured her, saying, "It'll take like 2 minutes, super easy. Just let me handle it so we don't have to worry about it later." She insisted on getting out of the bath to help, but I told her, No, you had a long day. Just relax. I'll be 2 seconds." She reluctantly handed me her phone, looking concerned, and reminded me to be careful not to snoop through anything because she had some confidential client information on there. I questioned why she was having client conversations on her personal phone instead of her computer, and she explained that her laptop system was down for a bit, so she had to use her cell. I brushed it off and told her, "No worries, I'm just downloading this app and reconnecting it." Then she kind of jabbed at me, asking if I needed to call my brother to help because she wasn't sure if I could handle it myself. That rubbed me the wrong way, like she was implying I wasn't good enough or something. I told her if I had any problems, I'd call him, and I walked out of the bathroom. Up until this moment, we'd never snooped on each other's phones. I never had to. We've always known each other's passwords, but never once checked up on what the other was doing. I trusted her completely. I chalked up her recent protectiveness of her phone to work stress, or maybe needing to decompress with some mindless games. Nope. Turns out she was decompressing with someone else entirely, sneaking around while I was sleeping or working my butt off trying to save lives downtown. I felt like an absolute idiot for not seeing it sooner. I quickly scrolled back and saw that the conversations between my wife and this guy Craig started last May, over a year ago. I screen-recorded what I could, sent it to myself via email, and then deleted the evidence from her phone. Meanwhile, she's yelling from the bath, asking if everything is okay, because it's taking more than 5 minutes. I played it cool, saying I was having an issue with my phone and brought hers back to her. She asked if everything was all right, and I said, "Yeah, figured it out," and walked back into the living room. There, I went through the video I sent to myself and read months' worth of filthy messages. Our son doesn't live with us anymore. He's downtown with his buddies in a condo, so I thought my wife was alone in the evenings while I worked. Nope. Craig would come over and they'd mess around while I was at work. He even snuck over while I was asleep in bed. I was sick to my stomach. I found Craig's last name from his Instagram, where she follows him, and they send each other sexy memes and lingerie ads. Craig is an attorney at a firm my wife works with, starting in March of last year. He looked like he's in his late 30s or early 40s. I saw red. Going through the screen recording, I noticed she was upset about not seeing him during the week when she started working from home, which looked like the early stages of whatever they had going on. But it quickly escalated. When I started working nights and extra shifts, she invited him over for lunch while I was sleeping. Reading this made me sick. So here I am, a few days since discovering everything, trying to figure out my next move. I really don't want to get screwed over since my wife works with law firms and knows people who could take everything from me. I have to be careful. This whole situation has messed me up completely. Update: I met with a lawyer. But before that, I want to thank everyone who reached out with advice and some tough love. I really needed it. So yeah, I called my brother and shared what I found. He's been a great support through all of this, reminding me of, so my soon-to-be ex, STBX, and I had these friends we met through her work. They're a married couple who run their own firm. My STBX did some consulting for them a few years back. We were all pretty tight back then. They'd come over for dinner at times, and we'd go out to eat or hit up the occasional Christmas party together. But after her contract with them ended about a year ago, we didn't really see or hear from them much anymore. My brother suggested I reach out to the husband and be straight with him about what's been going down. He was spot on. I got in touch with the guy and laid out the whole situation, but I asked him to keep it between us because I wasn't sure how close my STBX was with his wife. He got back to me right away and gave me a bunch of advice. He told me to send him the video of the texts between her and this guy Craig, along with copies of financial documents, account statements, and whatever else. He suggested I open separate accounts for my money and start moving money from our joint accounts without raising any red flags. Since our son is 19 and lives on his own, I didn't have to worry about custody. He said I should think about where each of us would live once the divorce papers were served. I told him I wanted to keep the house. The papers got drawn up, and I gave them to my STBX. I told her I wasn't leaving the house, and she had to go. She tried to argue that it was basically her office, but I pointed out she could find another place to work. Then, I dropped the bomb that she wasn't even working half the time she was inviting Craig over while I was just a few feet away. She tried to threaten me, saying I had no idea what I was getting into, but I knew she was just scared. She knew exactly who my lawyer was, and that seemed to spook her. I told her she had to break the news to our son. She had to come clean about everything, or I'd show him the texts between her and Craig. Our son totally backed me up. When she tried to apologize to him, he wasn't having it. He even encouraged her to move out and give me some space. So she packed her things and left. My son has been awesome through all of this. He checks in on me almost every day, and we've been hanging out a lot more, which has been really nice. Here's where it gets interesting. I didn't know my lawyer was one of the top family law attorneys in the country, but my STBX sure did. She tried to apologize and take everything back, but I told her it was too late. Turns out, while she was working for the firm, she started getting flirty with a partner and leaking info. They found out and ended her contract, even though she made it seem like it ended naturally. The consulting firm she worked for caught wind of this too, and let's just say they weren't happy. They basically put her on house arrest, having her work from home. So, everything she's been telling me has been a lie. The firm didn't just lose interest, they were actively keeping their distance, because they knew what she was up to. In the end, we settled. She gave me a big lump sum instead of dragging out alimony payments, which I used to pay off the house. Thank goodness the house is now officially mine. She kept trying to get back with me up until the very end, but I had to tell my attorney because it got too weird. Eventually, all communication went through the attorneys. Now she's lost her contract with that firm too, and there's an investigation going on. I heard she's been involved in some shady stuff, like breaching attorney-client privilege and mishandling confidential info. There are reports of conversations, messages, and emails being shared without proper authorization. In simple terms, she messed up big time. So basically, she had some inside info that she definitely shouldn't have known, and she spilled all the tea to the attorneys to help their case. Now, the State Bar Association is launching a full-blown investigation into whether there was a breach of attorney-client privilege along with other violations. But here's the kicker. This whole debacle spread like wildfire in the legal community. It led to rumors flying around about different C2Cs being knee-deep in shady dealings. What a mess. Honestly, I'm just laughing because she totally did this to herself. Meanwhile, I've moved on, got my own place, and I'm blessed with the best son a dad could ask for. Anyway, let's move on to another story. Story 2. My daughter cut me off for 17 years after I had an affair. She called to reconnect, but I initially refused. Recently, I apologized, and now she's visiting with my grandkid before I move overseas. Am I the jerk here? Let me give you some background first. I'm in my 60s now and was married to my ex-wife. We had a daughter and were going through typical marital ups and downs. Despite that, I was super close with our daughter. Unfortunately, I made a huge mistake that I still regret. I started an affair with a co-worker who was in a physically abusive relationship at home. We became friends, and one thing led to another. I helped her get out of that toxic marriage, and she eventually filed for divorce from her husband, who's now in jail. Our affair didn't last long, but I was relieved she found safety. When my ex-wife found out, things went south fast. She was furious and said horrible things about me to our daughter, who was 15 at the time. I admitted it was all my fault, but even after the divorce, my daughter started distancing herself from me. One day, she told me she wouldn't speak to me anymore and was cutting me out of her life forever. That was the most painful thing I've ever heard. I begged her to reconsider, but she held firm. After trying to reconnect for about a year, I gave up. Through a mutual friend, I learned my ex-wife remarried a great guy. I hoped this would soften her anger and she'd encourage our daughter to mend our relationship, but that never happened. I moved to a different state a year later and found some peace, although there's still lingering sadness. I've retired now, both. My parents and my brother have passed away, leaving me with just my dog and sister. A couple of hours ago, my daughter called me out of the blue after 17 years. I recognized her voice instantly, but I felt nothing, no happiness, no sadness, just indifference. She was crying and we caught up. She's married with a 12-year-old daughter. She apologized for cutting off contact, saying her mom felt guilty about everything and encouraged her to reconnect. She wanted me to meet her daughter, who kept asking about her granddad. But I still felt nothing and told her I didn't care about her or her daughter and to never contact me again. Then I hung up. Was I the jerk? Here are some comments I received. Spouse, 23. I hate when adults make bad decisions that hurt their kids and then blame them for reacting. Your daughter was a teenager dealing with a lot, and you gave up after 1 year. You moved away, showing her she wasn't worth the fight. Now she's reached out as an adult, and you again told her she wasn't important. She was probably right to cut you off the first time. Captain Cav. It sounds like he's been holding on to this hurt for 17 years just to get back at her. Congrats on your small, pathetic victory. M. Dennis, 1974. Nothing like a narcissist claiming to be the victim in a mess they created. Helping a coworker out of an abusive marriage didn't need to involve sleeping with her. Top palpitation 681. We get it, you're the a-hole. Anna. You don't have to be one, though. A lot of time has passed. At least try to meet her halfway. You owe her that much. Dystopian glitter. I'm confused as to why this is even a question for you. How tragic. Update. So, I was super drunk last night, and the words I said weren't great. Seeing all the comments calling me the a-hole, I decided to call my daughter back about an hour ago. I didn't expect her to pick up, but she did right away. I apologized for last night, and she said there was no need. I sent her a link to this Reddit post and admitted that everyone thought I was wrong. She started crying again, and I told her she's welcome to come over any time in the next 4 months, since I'm moving overseas with my sister and our dog. Well, be living at our parents' farmhouse. I sent her my address, and she said she'd come with her husband and daughter by the end of next week. She asked if they could stay for a few days, and I told her they could stay as long as they wanted since the place is spacious. Comments. The Doctor, 49. Just saw the update. Good man. I hope things work out. Hey, don't be too tough on yourself. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at us, and some things are just beyond our control. I'm really happy to hear that you and your daughter from the ER have patched things up and are rebuilding your relationship. I truly hope everything turns out fantastic for you both. Remember, life can be really challenging at times, and we all make decisions based on our emotions now and then. Take care of yourself and stay positive.